In all my years watching anime, I have seen more shows than I'd like to admit do the I should have killed this person, or I could have killed this person, but I didn't because of blah 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 reason. And I walked in assuming Noelle wasn't gonna kill this man. They set it up to make us think that. But I was thinking most likely the way they would get around it was maybe, well, Koga pushes the gun away. It's gonna be something like that. So when I quickly saw him shoot above his head, I thought to myself, damn it. This doesn't make any sense, right? Because this is a character who will kill. This is a character who poked out a man's eye in front of his daughter because he tried to kill him. There's no justifiable reason to keeping this guy alive when this slave would be a benefit to him. And they did something that rarely anime ever do, and usually would make a scene like this suck. He kept to his character and explained why there was no reason, because at the end of the day, he's not the type of person to just randomly save a slave because it's in the goodness of his heart. No, he'll free a slave if he can benefit from it, but at the end of the day, why kill this man when the slave in question could easily free himself? In that moment, it all clicked. A half-dead slave who is strong enough to free himself, who can't free himself because he's so broken. Why would I want that on my team? The only person he would want on his team is someone with that level of skill who has the desire to fight for himself. Freeing him from the slave would just give him a broken dog. And honestly, it's true, because you see it in the episode. I mean, he gets passed from one slave to the next, one slave owner to the next, and he's not a person. The first time we actually see him feel alive is when Noelle and him are fighting near the end. The way they wrote this is the perfect example of how this show gets edge right. It is edgy at face value. A man's arm gets cut off and it's squirting blood everywhere. Is it edgy visually? Of course. But the way they actually write the edge of emotionally breaking a slave, making him feel pathetic, and just the backstory of Koga, this is a legitimately well-written show in ways I wasn't expecting. And this show is actually fantastic. Of course, I have full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full and good thought to any of this Most Notorious Talker episode, it's over there exclusively. So, we actually get a pretty painful backstory for our boy. So, his family life sucks. And it's even more heartbreaking when you realize that the first time he felt accepted was when his slave master praised him for making him money. So, his mother, ended up getting violated by some people. And she got pregnant from it. Dad, understandably upset by the whole situation, but handled it piss poor. She ends up giving birth, and Dad completely just doesn't want anything to do with the kid because that's not his kid, and blah blah blah. Mom eventually takes her own life, and goddamn, poor Koga. He tries so desperately to the point that he just gets tossed aside and beaten and bruised to the point of being thrown into slavery. And the worst part is this little scumbag from last week is the first person in probably 12 years to give him niceness. Because it's not like he can remember his mother from when he was a kid, right? Like a baby or whatever. Raised by the dad and whatever maids and servants they had, right? The idea that, to be praised for killing and then thinking that's all he's good for. To then thinking about the concept of the same person ended up tossing him away to another slave master when it benefited him. To him, he is just an object and a tool to be used, and that's what his life is. And that's actually painful. And this is what I mean where the show writes edge in a way that's really well done. It doesn't come across as we're just trying to, here's a great example. A lot of authors who would write a character like Koga would just be like, yeah, his mom was violated, mom gave birth, mom killed themselves, and now he has no feelings, and just kind of leave it at that. But they actually give the extra spaces and show, I think the big thing that sells it is said slave master giving him praise because he's like, this man made me money, I'm so happy, you're great at this. That moment is a great example of why it's so great. Or you look at our girl's backstory and the idea of being raised as a killer only to then be tossed aside by the end of it. Those moments go a long way to flesh it out to being more than edge for the sake of edge, but rather edge done right. There's a lot of really popular series from Game of Thrones or Walking Dead, that are mainstream and they are edgy, but a lot of those big moments, the reason they stand out to the mainstream crowd is because there's actually building blocks to get there. And that's what I really like about what they did. And it was pretty clear to me what was probably going to happen, which was over the course, especially after he gets sold off to basically kind of cover the debts that he can no longer pay or whatever, was that he was going to fight our boy Noel. Because the dude who we poked the eye out of, he basically sells out Noel. I can't even say I blame him. If put in his shoes, I'd do the same thing. Unfortunately, he still doesn't have the money, so he loses his one arm, which was the arm that he was carrying his crutch with. So I don't even think that dude's living. I think he's dead. But the idea that it's like, okay, you're clearly going to throw him against him, and Noel's going to see someone who's actually passionate and will want him, and then in return, he'll actually feel alive fighting Noel, and then probably they'll end up killing this guy. I think given the fact that they clearly have like a mutual warrior respect for each other, especially with the, I'm going to expose all my abilities, all my skills, he does the same, and they just have this beautifully produced fight. I really think what's going to happen is next episode, especially because his talker skills weren't working, he was cutting through them. So, like, this is a person he wants on his team. And I think if it comes to, like, a sort of draw, or Noel ends up winning and he's like, okay, finish me off, and he's like, actually, if this is the type of passion you have, I could use someone like you. And if they work together to kill this man who's, it's kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This guy wants his freedom, has to kill the slave master. I don't want Hitman coming after me. I have to kill the slave master. Enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now they can join forces, and then they kind of build together. It's really well done when you think of it. And this show, I think alongside Let This Grieving Soul Retire, are probably the two shows that have been the biggest shock for me in terms of assuming I know what to expect. There's shows like Orb on the Movements of the Earth, which didn't see coming at all. But a show like this or Grieving Soul, I look at face value and I say, I know exactly what I'm getting into. I walked into this show expecting a 5 out of 10. Average show, probably would be fun, maybe be a little edgy, whatever it's going to do, right? But it's not going to do anything too extraordinary. And 2 Onwards has done absolutely that. Extraordinary left and right. And I am so baffled by how well put together this is. Visually, it does dip, like the art style can be inconsistent, and they do some tricks to get around animating certain things. But I mean, I like the way the general character models look. I think the fight scene between these two was really well done. And overall, I very much anticipate Mondays every single week because, granted, Grieving Soul is a Sunday show, but I typically do it on Mondays. So watching that and Talker on Mondays is just, it's awesome to me. Fantastic. The party's getting close to being formed, and you don't need the opening to tell you that this man was going to join the team, because after this episode, it's pretty clear that they are going to have a lot in common, and he's going to be very valuable for the team. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Jonathan, Brandon Sanders, RS Motis, Max Quellsmart, Mate Major, Earl888, and we also have Austin Citizen. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care. Y'all have a good one.